Good morning, everyone. Before we get going, are there any questions or comments from yesterday, or folks that were on last weekend? Any thoughts or questions from there you want to bring up or ask? Um, those on yesterday and this week's, I think the start of last week, I was trying to tie everything in together and sort of pull this lesson in the 8 cents together so that we all have the ability or the means, or just we see it in our daily lives and how it's being used. And so we sort of began sort of a pulling of it together yesterday, and really just going back and taking a look at the similarities between spiritual aspect of it versus philosophy of religion, and how we can avoid some of the pitfalls. We made a lot of comparisons yesterday too, as far as what's the thing that gets us stuck, gets us off schedule, and then also how do we maintain our focus, and Rev introduced some of the aspects of melanin, and some of the things that when we talk about the energy, that when we get fed sort of a negative energy, negative situation from a perception standpoint, that we turn that around and really utilize that, and utilize who we are to just reverse that energy. And so just want to, just kind of tie that in, we'll tie things together so that we get a clear understanding about this our role, the clarity, and how this ASENS is really been there for us all along. It's just now that we're truly becoming more aware of it, and how to use it, and we're becoming more clear on just being more sensitive and being more intuitive to the things that are going on around us. And so I gave a couple examples yesterday of how I'm literally trying to interject it into just the daily life. Some of the things you think that are small, using your intuition there and being more responsive, faster when you feel like you need to. And then maybe sometimes where we get a little passive on addressing things, but our gut, our intuition is telling us, no, let's go ahead and deal with it. And so we postpone it, and so we delay shifting that energy. So I just thought about yesterday, making a conscious effort to, when the opportunity comes up, understanding who you're supposed to be, and being able to inject for the people around you, for the community around you, for the things that we take responsibility for, because we're operating from the creator's perspective. And so when we talk about the ASENS, look at that as you're operating from the creator's perspective, and you want that to sort of be a natural flow. You don't want to have to make it something that's forced, but in the meantime, make time and really do the adjustments. And like I said, I'm doing that personally now. Like, I really try to practice and just incorporate it in just daily things, so that I'm just becoming more aware and more sensitive to little things that I may have taken for granted. Any thoughts or questions on that before we begin this kind of timing a little bit?
Yeah, good morning, ST. This is George on Philly. I appreciate again, just the journey that we've been on in reference to dealing with the senses, and more importantly, the 8th sense. And what I've tried to come to a conclusion on is looking at it, in a way that we can appreciate, our self-awareness in terms of our true identity, but being able to, look at it, in that way that we can look at our strengths, our interests, our needs and skills, but spiritually being able to appreciate it from a spiritual discipline, or, what I mean, in terms of how we now spiritually respond to situations and circumstances, but then looking at it in terms of how we deal with others in terms of socially, which again is interpersonal and intelligence. But I think that in it all, it's now our ability to be able to manage our emotions and being able to see it in the way that we can deal with our emotional regulation, our emotional intelligence, that we can truly appreciate, the power that we have to be and to do that which, the Creator is giving us to do. And I just wanted to share when you had talked about energies, because we get our energies from the earth, we get it from the sun, we get it from the galactic, process of just how the universe was created and made, and we get it from the cosmos. And so in those areas where melanin is in everything, and at the same time, again, we realize that melanin is that molecule that is in everything. So as we begin to, appreciate the eighth sense, I can see it, more clearly and understand it in terms of just being able to look at it in that realm. And just one other point I just wanted to, make in terms of when you have talked about science and how it relates to melanin. When we look at the periodic table of elements, it talks about 6 protons, 6 neutrons, and 6 electrons creates carbon. It creates melanin. So I think that, again, we are all where we are, and I think it's an awesome journey. And I just wanted to, share those thoughts, because I'm beginning to, not just know it, but experience it in terms of ways that, we can deal with our emotions. I just wanted to share those thoughts. I'm done.
No, thank you. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, when we look at it, thank you, George. When we look at it from that creator's perspective, and even the energy that goes into creating, because when we're creating, it's an action, and anytime there's action or process, it requires energy or movement. But it's an action, a process of bringing something into existence, and we talked about when things are brought into existence, they're non-ceasing. Energy doesn't stop. It keeps evolving and moving. And so when we look at ourselves from that creative perspective, it's always good to kind of reflect and also remind ourselves of the tools that we've been given that are just embedded in us. When you're talking about the ways that we can do it, the ways we can become better and sharper at it with the meditation and also lining things up and constantly feeding ourselves, because that constant feeding is the wisdom. And then we look at what real success is, and that's really the conversion of the wisdom into enlightenment, the way we're using it. So that's when you talk about the success, we talk about it's truly enlightenment at the highest form. It's not really based on the 5 senses that we were taught or grew up seeing. And so when you look at all of the emotional aspects of it that you brought up, those are things that require us to maintain that discipline so that we don't enter into a philosophy that kind of gets us stuck or holds us in a pattern that we can't figure out how to get out of it. So, and that's that balance of keeping the two natures in line, but also it always starts from within. I used an example yesterday of everybody sees results, but no one knows how the sausage is always made. And I think I was talking about Sheldon. So if you've got something, he prepared a dish, and you see him putting in all these ingredients from different containers, and those containers say one thing on the outside, but he knows what's inside those containers. And so you try to duplicate that same thing using those containers, but the reality was they weren't labeled properly, and so you're using something that wasn't in there. But the point is that you look at it externally, things can be one way or appear one way, but you're always going to be correct if you know what's inside. So that's where everything always starts within us first, and that alignment is the thing that gives us the foundation and the tools to begin. And this journey is always evolving; it never ends. And so we made a point a couple of weeks ago that nothing is just discovered and that's it. You know, you discover something and it never ceases. It never ceases to exist. And so it's always important not to focus on what you see externally. And that means the connection with the community, the people around you. It always has to be connection from inside. Because if we allow the visual to determine what we do, then we go back to where we're creating things and doing things from a selfish or dualistic version. And so that was one of the importance
ST.
of it initially. Yeah.
This is Audrey. Good morning. I want to go back to something George was saying, and he was saying when we look at the periodic table, and we see 6 protons, 6 neutrons, 6 electrons for carbon. Can you elaborate on that a little more? Because it's 666, that's the number of man, right? But I kind of feel like,
that.
Sorry?
No, so yeah, you're right. I didn't even catch that.
But I feel like with this, what we've been talking about, it's like we're man, but we're more than man because of the 8th sense. But could somebody elaborate, talk a little more about that? Thanks.
Yes. Yeah. Good morning, everyone again. And Audrey, I appreciate you sharing that, because that's what came to my mind when I first was doing some reading, and it says, what does the 666 really mean? And I think that sometimes, again, even when we see it as being human, just in terms of philosophies of the church, it was the devil's. You know what I mean? And so when we began to appreciate, the importance of looking at spirituality before religion and being able to go back to the origins, again, of beginning, and being able to look at the importance of primary sources being evidence of documentation through the hieroglyphics or the Medu Neter, in reference to the Kushite and Kemetic teachings, we begin to appreciate that what existed before the beginning began. And I think that this is where, Audrey, and even for myself, we talk about the creation story, but I just want to read something to you that I think that might have some connection that we might be able to understand. So when we talk about man, it says, before existence existed, thought in the universal's mind created desire in the heart. And desire spoke word in his heart. I'm sorry, let me say it again, I apologize. Before existence existed, thought in the universal mind created desire in her heart, and desire spoke word in his heart, and word made flesh. It says, flesh brought all and everything into being and started the process of the cosmos becoming within the womb of the universe. And the Creator's first thought before the beginning was, I will create creations in my image that I can live through to achieve my ultimate desire. And that's basically to know self. And I will become the creator having a human experience. And so in reading that, it made me just realize when we talk about true identity, and we talk about to know oneself, to know thyself, then I realized that, again, we are the creators having the human experience, but it was the spirituality, it was that already existed before the beginning that was present in the waters of the Nun. So again, Artie, when we talk about the neutrons, the electrons, and the carbon, we're talking about the science. And I think that was something that was separated, in religion, where you can't separate, the spirituality and the science. So I don't know if that resonates at all, but I think that, again, it does go back to the, science from a standpoint in terms of how it all began. And so I just wanted to share those thoughts. Hopefully that might be of some help. But I think it's something that we are exploring as we get into, the subject of melanin and the human. I'm done.
Okay, thanks, George. That helped. I'm looking forward to you talking about the waters of Nun.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
George, one question I was thinking of that came to mind when you were. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna. One thing I was thinking of when George was speaking on that was there's two types of ways to get there. From we talk about creating. You either create from an experience which is more earthly, when you create for experience, or we create from a desire that's led to an awareness of something that's needed to be a desire that creates an awareness of a solution. I mean, from that, like experience, a creation from experience typically ends up being more earthly material, because an experience that you've had, you see a need. Okay, I need to fix this. For whatever reason, when George, I saw where desire creates an awareness for creation that's going to be more spiritual and benefiting mankind. And I gave you a quick example of this real before you. Years ago, when our kids were smaller, well, Bailey was smaller, we'd go to like track meets in the summertime, and I'm talking 100 degrees, hot sometimes, and I can remember the bleachers being so hot, especially the metal one. They were just hot. You had to bring your towel to sit on. Well, at some point years later, talk about absorbing energy, they created the bleachers that were still aluminum, but they absorbed the heat and they never felt hot when you sat on them. And so that was something that was created over experience, and based on experience, they're like, okay, yeah, this comes to mind. But at the same time, if you look at it from an awareness standpoint, there's a creation that just says, I'm going to do something that's going to benefit someone from not overheating or whatever. And so there's the physical part, but there's also the creation that just looking at, a benefit of someone. And that may not be the best example, but when you were talking, George, I thought about the experience of creating from that versus desire and an awareness of something that's needed or a solution. But go ahead, Pat.
No, I was going to say that when George was talking about carbon, we do know that carbon is the foundation of life, and we were talking about the 3 sixes. It was there was a core of 6 neutrons, and surrounding that core of 6 neutrons are the 6 protons and 6 electrons that he was talking about. And that indeed gives us, I think it's carbon 12, the type of carbon that is the foundation for life itself. Also, it operates within tight parameters in that if there were one more proton, like if it was 6 neutrons and 6 electrons and 7 protons, it'd be nitrogen. So everything it takes for life is centered around the bonds of 6 neutrons being the core. However, I also see that as the makeup. I know rather that there's the makeup also of melanin, because without melanin there would be no carbon, and we probably can get into that a little bit later. So I do see this as a biblical or a spiritual code, meaning that when the scripture talks about 666, the number of man, is also speaking or guiding us rather on a journey of seeing that the life of man is bound in the chemical makeup of life itself, and that being carbon-based. So I just wanted to add that, and a bit later on to look in depth at some of the understandings of the pineal gland, or pineal gland, in relationship to melanin and melatonin. Thank you. I'm done unless there are questions or comments.
It's Ron. I have a question or a comment. I'm not sure what I got here. Just so much you guys have said already. And again, kind of piggybacking off what George said when he talked about your thoughts and the importance of creation, and as talked about the creation being continuous, never ceasing. I think about something as I listened to part of the video yesterday. You guys were talking about the energy of the universe, the energy out there. So as you have most of the earth that are in their religious setting, let's say, and we see sometimes, I think we've all had that thought that you turn on the news and turn on the television, something else has happened, especially in politics. Some law has changed, and it almost seems like people stay up at night trying to think of ways to change things. So as energy, as creation never stops, that can also be seen readily on the negative side. So, but I'm listening at something that I think I hear here as something as the recognizing that you're a human, and recognizing that I am Elohim, and accepting that, and knowing that the importance of guarding your thoughts. Does that put you in a position to attract that energy? Is that put you in a better position or a better place as far as being the creator and doing taking a more as just said, that desire and need for change and benefiting mankind? Does that put you in a position that you may attract that energy more, and it readily becomes because it seems like, I mentioned the world, it seems like that energy can be shaped anywhere men put their mind to it, in negative ways and ways to be greed. But he who sees enlightenment and wants betterment for mankind, I almost see that this is created for him, for that type of man to kind of step out and take the reins on this thing. And maybe that's why we see the drop off from the church. The drop off from the church to me, let me just say this, then I hush. The drop off from the church to me said that there's a question mark, there's an opening, there's an opportunity to be filled because people have taken a closer look at what's out there, and they don't like what has been available to them. So there's a void that is being created, and
I want you to make up your mind that
you guys want to mute your phone, please?
Would you please mute your phone? Thank you.
But that's just my question. I just wonder, as being Elohim, is this energy out there for us, or are we seeing this as we guard our thoughts, as we desire to be creators, and we're stepping in the right direction? Just kind of just listening to what everybody said last couple of days, just made me think about this a little differently. Does that make sense at all?
Yeah. Go ahead,
Go ahead,
Pastor. Well, one thing I was going to say about what you were bringing up, Ron, I think what it does, it gives us more clarity on how to transform it, because we can absorb certain negative energy as far as whether it's directed to us, whether it's around us, whether it's in our presence or indirect. I think it gives us greater and quicker clarity on how to deal with it, to transform it to a positive. We can't shape the results of it, but I do think it gives us a clearer picture on how to transform it, because we talked about, absorbing some of these things, and whether it be that, how that system works with the bleachers, where it's just constantly being radiated with heat, but at the same time, it's just taking that heat, it's absorbing it, and not transmitting heat, but it's just a solid temperature. So I think for us too, we get a clarity on how to deal with things and where to place the energy to respond to certain conflicts or how things are coming at us. I think it gives us a clearer picture of it. But go ahead, Pastor.
Well, but before Pastor go, that's part of what I meant to say, because you're exactly right. Audrey mentioned being human. We talk about it being Elohim. So we're crossing into a transitional phase that most people have not sought out. I dare say that. And as we have studied this, it is no coincidence that what we've seen in the scripture is addressing the African, right? It is no coincidence that we are Africans on this. So it is no coincidence as well that the higher the melanin, the more energy you are able to absorb. You can absorb all colors, all light. That's no coincidence. So that's where I'm going with this. What position or has that put us in? What are we? Maybe all of this is created for us at this time, and all of this has happened in the earth so that at this time and place, this opportunity will present itself for awareness and the availability, enlightenment to come to us to make those the necessary changes. But I don't know. I just see something here that I can't I guess pull together. And
can I help you?
Please do.
I think I can. First of all, let's back up to religion and spirituality. suppose for a moment that there are only two things in this earth: what we define as religion and spirituality. Religion being, by our definition in this earth, or understanding of religion in this earth, is a set of philosophical beliefs. And spirituality being the existence of everything that is. If we look at it in those terms, then we begin to see that we are either religious or animalistic in our thoughts and desires, or we are spiritual, which means that we have embraced the reality of being Elohim, having a human experience, meaning living in this body. If we embrace the reality that we are indeed Elohim, if we embrace the reality that all of humanity, all of mankind came from the womb of an African, if we embrace the reality that the African being lives or came into being in a climate that was very well bathed in sunshine, and if we understand that the pineal gland secretes melanin, and the melanin secretion is activated by the sunlight, then we conclude that the lack of sunlight inhibits the flow of the secretion of melanin. And if we confine ourselves to the sources that produces energy, the artificial sources, those artificial sources being the light from a TV, the light from a computer screen, a cell phone, if we absorb those constantly indoors, then we have a deprivation of secretion of melanin into our bodies. And that deprivation of secretion of melanin creates all kinds of problems, because melanin is very influential in our moods, especially dealing with depression. Also, melanin is active in our sight and our thoughts. During the Vietnamese War, I read that when the soldiers were brought in from the soldiers who had gotten killed in battle were brought back to America, they did autopsies on them. The writer says that what they noticed is that the pineal gland, I keep saying pineal, you know what I'm talking about. The pineal gland of the African soldiers was larger than the pineal gland of the Caucasian soldiers. And the pineal gland of the African were more adept to the secretion of melanin. Since that was discovered or understood, there has been an effort, and I'm coming to your point about energy, Ron. There has been an effort to disassociate melanin with the pineal gland and talk about it as being the home of our circadian rhythm, which means the place that tells us to sleep, wake up, etc., the circadian rhythm. And it attributes only melatonin as being what the pineal gland secretes. However, we know how that game is played. Anything that pertains to us, that grants us opportunity to see the reality of our creation, is stymied by all of these quote-unquote Caucasian experts who sometimes employ people who look like us to make every attempt to disprove the reality of what we know the truth is. The pineal gland is the central force behind our thoughts and the depth of our thoughts. It's also the central force behind our unicity with the universe. And the reason that the Dogon were able to do what they did in terms of understanding the heavenly bodies and knowing that that was a Sirius 2 behind Sirius 1, the reason they were able to do that is because no one had told them that they were not one with the universe. No one had told them that they were being superstitious. They knew who they were, and still to this day they do. And as a result of that, they actually recorded what they saw. Now, as far as the energies are concerned, the more energy that we receive from the sun, the pure the secretion of melanin is. And when Ron was talking about the absorption of all colors, we're talking about the absorption of all energies. So the question becomes, when you absorb that energy, what do you do with it? If we are absorbing the energy, if black absorbs all colors and white rejects all colors, then that speaks volumes to me in regards to what we do with this energy. When we absorb this energy, our desires must be to bring everyone, the whole of mankind, to a place where it recognizes that it is human, meaning that it is the image of Elohim living in a physical body. And all of this being orchestrated by our Creator has brought us to a place to understand that our primary responsibility in being creators is to bring mankind to this place where it recognizes who it is. The contrary has been taking place. Everything that's related to the African, that's related to our Creator, has been turned upside down, has been manipulated, has been used for greed. Now that we are at this place of understanding and desire, it is up to us to embrace that responsibility. And when we absorb that energy, we don't sit around on our sofa and say, okay, what am I going to do with this energy today? We don't do that. Our desire is simply to bring harmony to humanity so everyone can recognize its essence, its creation. If that's our desire, we don't have to enumerate what we do with the energy. The energy goes, as George says, as our attention flows. I got it right, I think. So if our attention flows, if our attention is focused on bringing humanity to a place of harmony, then that's where the energy flows. When we sense the energy of someone in distress, then it is when we sense that, and our desire for them is for them to be at peace, that is the energy that we are directing towards them. So we are working with the energy that we are given, and the energy is working with us as well as working on its own. The energy that we receive through artificial sources, we have the opportunity to transform that energy by virtue of spending time in the sun. And the sunlight, in turn, increases the ability of the pineal gland to secrete the melanin. It is known that the pineal gland houses light, and the light that it houses up until recently with Caucasian, well, not recent, they've been doing this, but it has been out there, that this light that's there is not a light that comes from artificial sources. Artificial sources can contaminate it, but the sunlight purifies it. So when we see who we are and our purpose for being in this earth, we began to understand more clearly the reasoning behind a group of people in this earth making every effort to make us feel inferior. One of the things that I see have been shown, maybe I should say, is that the reason we don't see the George Washington Carvers or the Dr. Drews as much as we once did, or in large numbers as we once did, is because we have become a group of people, a group of assimilators. We have directed all of our energies and all of our efforts toward assimilating into a society that is not worth assimilating into, a society that should not even exist in the earth. When we understand this and remove ourselves from this journey of assimilation, then we began to do as so many others did prior to us. And that is, they spent a lot of time taking walks in the sun. They spent a lot of time outside. If you look at the cutoff point or the point where the spigot was being slowly turned off of creativity in the African, you will see it came with the African desiring to be an assimilator as opposed to an integrator, carrying with it its understanding of self, so that humanity could experience the essence of harmony, the essence of peace. So we need to really, really revert to a period of time where we were spending a lot of time in the outdoors. We have gotten to a point where we say things to each other like, you need to stay out the sun, black as you are, not realizing what you are actually doing is cutting off your source of energy, your source of intellect, your source of well-being, your source of great health, your source of receiving wisdom and understanding. I can give you, and I'm using this simply as an example. I mean, any of us who are teaching, we can give you the understanding of the wisdom, but we cannot give you the knowledge. We can give you that understanding, but the knowledge comes because of your experience. We can't give you the experience, but we can give you the understanding. And if you have the understanding and you desire, as Esther said he's doing continuously, desire to experience what is being revealed to us, what we're being made aware of, if you desire to walk in that, then those experiences will bring you to a place where you begin to more clearly see the mirror of who you are supposed to, not supposed to, who you were created to be. Now, being ignorant of the flow of energy puts you in a precarious place. The energy simply flows through you, or you make application of that energy in the same way that the assimilators make use of the little that they have. What do they do? If you look at people of color in this earth, their lives has been torn apart. Their cultures have all but been destroyed for the purpose of the satisfaction of greed to those who have the least amount of melanin within them. It is up to us to make that to make the difference there. And I'm not talking about necessarily physically, because physically, as Ron was talking about a couple, I guess last week, that the physical aspects of the browning is simply a manifestation of the spiritual reality of the browning. The spiritual reality of the browning of America is getting a message there, taking the message to not so much the ears as much as to the soul of those who have the least amount of melanin. And when we bring those who have the least amount of melanin to a place of spirituality and free them from the shackles of religion, it is at that point that we will all begin to experience the harmony that we were brought into this earth to not only experience but to create as well. The dominance in the earth is going to be us in terms of Elohim, or the dominance in the earth is going to be resistance to Elohim, and how that happens or which one is successful, it depends upon us. If we truly embrace the essence of our being, the nature with which we were created, then Elohim will be the dominant force in the earth. It is no coincidence that we talk about the universe handling things and the universe filled with melanin, filled with melanin, and everything that exists has melanin. And the strongest telescope can only reach to the end of the universe. No one knows what's beyond that, or if there's anything. So that tells me that under the canopy of of this universe, we receive all the power, all of the insight that is necessary for us to carry out our responsibilities. And when we are committed to carrying out the responsibilities that we have been given, when we travel this journey without search for recompense, when we travel this journey for the purpose of bringing harmony, it is then that we begin to see all those things being added that we are in need of. And our journey is simply a journey of seeking the kingdom, the understanding of the wisdom of the kingdom, and in doing so, understanding the righteousness of our journey and our desires, and that entails everything that we need being added to us. And simply because you don't have what I have, or I don't have what you have, it doesn't mean that the addition is not taking place. It could very well mean that your seeking is not as it should be. Now, I'm not saying that seeking has to be 10 steps or 5 steps. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying that when we shift our focus, our desires to, let me put it this way simply. When we sit down with the issues that come into our lives, and we make a concerted effort to embrace them, and rather than attack them the way that religious/government tells us to, we deal with them from the inside out and understand that it is nothing to destroy us, it is something to strengthen us. It is then that we begin to see all of the things that we need being added to us. Is it a struggle? Yes, it is. Is it easy? not really. It does become easier, but in the beginning, it is not, because in order for us to do this, we have to change our focus. We have to change our thought patterns. We have to shift in terms of our desires. And when I'm talking about desires, I'm talking about our desires must come from the depths of our soul and not from our minds. The pineal gland is the gland that is necessary. That is dominant when we start talking about being one with the universe, one with our Creator. Are there any questions or comments? Thank you.
Well, good morning, everyone. One of the things I wanted to add, and I agree with everything that was said, that when you talk about or have a discussion of melanin and your pineal gland, it's an experience. And what I mean by an experience is when you rely on your melanin, for example, to discipline a child, your first action will not be to beat the child, because that comes out of the European energy. Yet when you rely on melanin, you can discipline that child without putting pause on the child. And if you look at the African American male, presently speaking, if we beat our son, some of those licks may come from frustration, PTSD. We were denied a promotion. We got a ticket that we really weren't supposed to get. So some of those licks could come from purely frustration. Same thing with the female. Some of those licks could come from he looked like his father. So when you rely on the experience, in other words, if the European male comes into my sandbox, instantly my sandbox serves him well. Instantly. Now, if I go into the European sandbox, I will serve well. However, it will not be instantly, because it's a lot of paradigms you got to get through. So when I look at melanin, I look at it as an experience that keeps you close to the Creator. And by way of your pineal gland or pineal gland, that is like your moral compass. That's what guides me, directs me. Hey, George, slow down. Hey, George, you need to get from around this car. So I look at melanin as an experience, and Mr. George out of Philly was correct. Without carbon, nothing can exist. And so carbon is the origin of melanin. So I just look at melanin as an experience, and I came up with that. It might have been about a month or 2 months ago when Reverend Richard stated that the European is our children. So I started looking at things of, you don't want to be, when you're parent, you don't want to be your children's friend. You want to be their parent. So our melanin keeps us close to the Creator, to Elohim, to the earth. You don't, the minute we start dumbing down ourselves, we'll start acting like the European, and we'll take on his traits. Thank you.
We've already taken on the traits. The other thing is that when I said our children, I was speaking in regards not only to the limited amount of melanin and the harshness in terms of their attitudes towards humanity, but also the fact that their interest into the earth is much later than everyone else in this earth, especially much later than the African. As far as melanin is concerned, melanin is a chemical. It's not an experience. Melanin is a chemical that gives us opportunity to have experiences. Melanin is the bridge between this physical world and the spiritual world. when we become resurrected to the true nature of what is, at that point we are no longer, our bodies no longer need neutrons and protons. They have neutrinos, and the neutrinos are molecules or atoms that are able to pass through solid material, as Jesus was able to pass through a wall after his resurrection, which means that you're able to constitute in a physical form or a spiritual form. So the Enoch experience is becoming more and more clear to me as I understand more clearly the chemical nature / spiritual nature of melanin in relationship to neutrinos. The other thing that's becoming more clear to me is that we are obligated to first. Would you please mute your phone? We are obligated to first learn who we are, and would you please mute your phone? Learn who we are, and at the same time of learning who we are also obligated to act accordingly. And acting accordingly does not mean that we are abusive in language or in physical ways. Acting accordingly to the presence of mind, of presence of knowing who we are, means that we are forgiven, we are all embracing, and even though there is discomfort in the sandbox of the European, we bring comfort to that sandbox rather than to capitulate to the desires of those who do not understand what they are doing. Keep in mind, when Jesus was crucified, he said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." He was not only talking to the priests who solicited his crucifixion, but he was also talking to the Romans, because they did not know what they were doing. They didn't understand who was being crucified and the purpose for the who that was being crucified being brought into this earth. He was also talking about not only the crucifixion, but the beating that he had endured the night before, which can only be attributed to his being African and the Romans being European. So there is no other way to approach the brutality of coming in contact with the European other than saying, "Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they are doing." All he was saying, and all we must say all the time, is, "Avum, restore them to where they were before they came into this earth." They don't understand the nature of what they are doing. The case of George Floyd, the case of Charleston 9, forgive them. They don't know what they are doing. They don't understand how to be human yet. We must teach them that. This is our journey. And though sometimes it seems as though things are getting worse, it just seems that way. Why? Because it's always the darkest before the dawn. My expectation, my desire, my belief with everything in me is that we are going to see dramatic changes after this blood moon. We are going to see dramatic conflicts reduced. We're going to see conflicts dramatically reduced, I should say that way. And the conflicts of which I speak is not just the thing that's going on in Ukraine. I'm talking about conflicts within ourselves, individually, collectively. I'm talking about conflicts within the society. We are going to see a resolution to these conflicts. I do believe that. And the reason I believe that is because of the energy that's brought into this earth from that blood moon. that blood moon, of course, is based upon the particles in the atmosphere that causes it to be that color. However, there is a purpose and a reason for it existing in that way. And the purpose and reason for it existing in that way, as is believed by many on the continent of Africa, is that that there is a conflict in the universe between the sun and the moon, and that conflict and the desire is for that to be by the universe or us in this earth. And the way we bring resolution to it in this earth is by bringing resolution to our internal conflicts and to our, as well as our external conflicts. And we will not be the arbiters of external conflict if we are not the arbiter of internal conflict. So with that, I ask again questions or comments. And George, thank you for what the comments you made.
Just wanted to back up 1 second, Rev, and just really this is just more validation of what you've been saying this morning. Not that we have to validate it, but this is just more validation. One thing, and then the other thing is just the balance that we've been talking about for the last couple of months to understanding who we are, but also balancing the human nature and showing how we should be human, but also this thing we're wrapped up in, but we are Elohim. And then moving from the balance to the pineal gland. That pineal gland, it's got to be clear, and we understand the awareness of it, because it does control the flow of light, which in turn allows us to secrete the proper amounts of melanin. And if anyone doesn't really, just to give you a visual of that, we give off what we call thermoelectrical or thermomagnetic radiation, which in a lot of terms, that radiation is called black body radiation. So everybody gives off black body radiation, whether we believe it or not. So just to validate it, that man has figured out a way to manage this and utilize it. And the way that we utilize the black body radiation that each person gives off is, and I'm sure everybody's been going through this a lot now in COVID, that's where the thermal infrared temperatures come from. When they scan your forehead, they're scanning that black body radiation, which in turn, they can tell you what your temperature is. And it's just based on everything around it, sunlight and all kinds of different calculations I don't want to get into, but just to validate that we do give it off. If you've ever had your temperature taken by infrared thermometer, it's scanning your black body radiation. And that's just in the human, in this format, we're thinking about it. But when we start looking at things spiritually and how energy is emitted from us. So I just wanted to say those two things, that we're constantly in a walk to balance the human nature, but also understanding with the awareness of who we are. And just to give you a visual or an idea when you start thinking about the energy that we're giving off and how things absorb. But that the technical term for it is called black body radiation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions or comments? I want to address something else in a moment. And I know we've talked about it a lot in this hour. Any other questions or comments?
Yes, this is Angela. I got a question about melanin. When your body produces, too much, first of all, can your body produce too much melanin? There's something that's called, which deals with melanin in your body. It's called, I'm going to spell it because I can't pronounce it. MELANONYCHIA, and they said it's more prone in African Americans. So my question is that when your body produces too much melanin, or is that a lack of melanin?
I don't know what that is. I'm not familiar with the term, but I do know that there are melanin. Go ahead. Is there someone familiar with?
Oh.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say because I have that, and I went to the doctor, and that's what the dermatologist told me that it was. And I was looking it up, and it says something about deals with melanin, but he said it's more prone in African Americans, where you have the little, it's like a brown streak, and maybe in your nails, but it looks like fungus, but it's not fungus. And they said it's more prone in African Americans than some Japanese, which it does say something about melanin deposited into your nails. So I don't know if that's what I was asking. Was it producing too much, or was it a lack of melanin? I don't have too much information on it, but
I'm sure someone is researching it now to see what that is. However, I would appreciate it if you would send me that word, text me that word, because I'm interested now, and I'll find out what you're talking about, okay?
Okay, I will.
Okay, thanks. Anyone else? I excuse me. I do believe that where we are in our place of understandings now puts us in a spiritual place that has not been seen on this scale since the days of the Cushites. I want to speak to this idea of bringing harmony and peace to mankind. This idea of bringing harmony and peace to mankind speaks to the idea of redemption. Suppose for a moment that the redemption deals with, first of all, redeeming yourself. It speaks of redemption, speaks of deliverance, of paying a ransom for something. Suppose for a moment that the ransom that must be paid for us to be redeemed is the separation from religion itself, meaning that detaching our desires from those desires that we were taught in religion and in this Western education. Suppose that the ransom being paid is what we have done and continues to do, and that is to reorient our thoughts and follow our soul as opposed to the thoughts that we have been bombarded with throughout our lives. If that is the case, then the redemption of the European is necessary, and the ransom that's being paid for redemption is forgiveness. Forgiveness for the enslavement, forgiveness for the greed, forgiveness for forced assimilation. When you think about it, the only people in this country who were forced to immigrate is us. And forgiveness for that. Forgiveness for the rapes, the murders, the tortures, forgiveness for the lynchings. All of this is a ransom that's being paid, because what it does, it frees our emotional state to the place where we are more able to be the redeemers that we were brought in this earth to be. And when we do that, when this ransom is rendered, it is at that point that now the voice, the energy, the spirit of Elohim is what overshadows everything in the earth. And now the ransom for bringing redemption to the climate is paid by virtue of those who we are here to redeem. When their redemption it takes place, they began to see that the earth is not here to be your piggy bank. It's not here to be destroyed for your purposes. It's here for the purpose of this human body to be balanced in this environment. Suppose all of those ideas of redemption are what we are purposed to bring about in this earth, but it must start with us first, and then humanity, and then the climate itself. Does that make sense? Hello?
It makes sense.
Makes perfectly good. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
I also have a question. And I'm thinking about the incident in Buffalo yesterday. It's like another kind of Dylan Roof type incident. It seems like when the incident happened in Charleston, those people were very forgiving. But the one in Buffalo yesterday, I mean, it's hard because it seems like it just keeps happening. And although it didn't really happen to me, I really feel for those people. And I know in my head and my heart that the forgiveness should take place. But sometimes it's kind of difficult to get there. Do you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. And it is difficult to get there. However, you get there. That's the main thing. You get there. And there is the place where you understand that the reason it is important to forgive is because they truly don't know what they're doing. The feelings that heartbreak that we experience is going to always be there. And the reason it's there is because of who you are. You have compassion for people. And whether, the Ukrainians are not Africans, yet that we feel the hurt for what's happening to them. So this is, and I get it, the difference that's involved. I get that. However, I also know that we get there to that place of forgiveness, and the other aspect of that helps me to get to that place that I'm speaking of is I remind myself that these are the types of things, events. These are the types of events that forces people to focus, to give thought to what's happening. And each time that something like that takes place, it causes more and more people to open their minds, open their hearts, and to see and to take inventory of what's really taking place and how do you truly feel about it. And if you are truly heartbroken, what are you truly going to do about it? And when we think about that and we say, well, we have to end racism, well, that's not up to us. We didn't create it. It is not our problem. It's up to those who perpetuated to end it. And these are the types of things that moves us towards that goal. And I know it sounds morbid, but I'm not being morbid at all. It is the reality. Just as I was being brought across the Great Sea in chains, uh, is morbid when we consider the devastating acts that were perpetuated against us and still are. When we consider that the first thing that the slave traders did was to decapitate an African and put his head on a stick as you approached the ship, so that it would be a reminder to the others of this will happen to you if you create a problem. And we think about the 3-4 months being on the ship tied in a hole, and vomit and defecation and urination and all kinds of diseases. All of this, when we think about that, is heart-wrenching, yes, but all of it orchestrated for an end goal. And the suffering that's being endured. I know the scripture talks about the joy that it brings in the morning, and the morning that it brings it is the balance in this earth. And I raised the question within me: if we can bring balance to this earth, and we can, then at what point do we say enough is enough? Well, if we go to any cost, then it's up to us to stay the journey. But we don't know when enough is enough. We don't know when we come to the end of our rope and we're not going to take it anymore. We are committed to a continuous flow towards harmony in this earth. The idea, and one of the painful things that happen is not the death, it's the reason behind it, and it is the way it's done. Because death itself is the exodus period. That's it. The death means that Elohim is no longer having experience. So that's not the issue at all. The issue is how it's done and the reason it's done. And those are the two driving forces that actually keep us focused on this journey. I hope that helps somewhat, Audrey. And the rest of us, of course. Thanks. Questions, comments?
Pastor Ron, if I can say something, that's sort of what I was hinting at first time, and you said it a lot more eloquently than I could have. But when we look at some of the lessons we've had in the past, when we look at the lepers and what it meant to be a leper, and what we were seeing there is not everybody feels that vibration in the universe. No, not everyone is in rhythm. And so when you look at the fact that the human and Elohim are one, and it not realizing it, not only as talked about a community being a community, not only are we a community on this phone, we have become one with a common goal, but we are also feeling that community and that desire for that community throughout the world and throughout this nation. So as Elohim and as the human, it does happen to us. It does happen to your children, to your friend, to your cousin, to whomever. So that feeling is real. That feeling that connectiveness that you feel, and even when the forgiveness, because it does take a while, at least it does for me, comes around, you also feel the forgiveness for the guy who did this act, because he truly does not know what he's doing. And so when you look at it from that perspective, the cross is being Jesus is dying on the cross every day, and that forgiveness has to come. So when Audrey talks about it didn't happen to her, but you still feel it. We're going to feel it. We're going to feel it. We're supposed to, and that's what I was saying. I don't think there has been, at least in my lifetime, a time when energy has been sought for this purpose and for it in this way. So I think it is a sign to us. I think it is a pointing to us, enlightening, showing us that we're heading in the right direction. And I also think these things, unfortunately, are necessary to even get the attention of other Europeans that may see that one day enough is enough. This is enough that this is happening. So I just agree with her. I agree with your assessment of things, but I just agree with her about the hurt and the pain and what we're feeling here. So I hope that made sense.
Anyone else?
Just it goes back to our discussion a couple of weeks ago. It's like there's a healing aspect and everything, and the initial response really is we process it from the eyes of who we are, even though it's difficult. It's just how we begin to process it. So I do understand what Audrey is saying, where it's difficult, but at the same time, we understand how we must process it and put the proper energy out there. But I understand her assessment of it for sure.
All of us have made assessments, and in the past had different approach of this we felt with, and we've seen all methods tried to deal with these type of brutal perpetrated against us, and yet really changes anything. And I do believe that we are the ones to change everything, and we're going to continue to feel what Audrey is expressing, what Ron is expressing, what all of us feel. We're going to experience that. Yet we stay the course. Why? When Jesus said, "Pick up your cross daily and follow me," that wasn't like putting a wooden cross on your shoulders and walking up Golgotha Hill. That was the idea of the burdens that he carried for humanity, and carrying that cross. What did he do when he was nailed to it? When the vision of the burden was carried out, he sought forgiveness for those who did it, and that's our course. That's the course we take, and though it's difficult, it is extremely necessary. And I know all of us know this. But there are times when to verbalize it helps us to be strengthened, so that we can continue the journey. Because every one of us know that this journey is not easy. Children take the easy way out because until they learn that the easy way is not always the best way. And the ways out that we have taken in the past is the way we've been taught to take. And that is embrace religion and tell God all about it. And Jesus is going to change things. I am convinced that the period that we're in is the darkest period just before the dawn, I will you to read the second of Joel down to verse 31, 32. I think that's the whole chapter. I'm not sure, but anyway, read that. And I was drawn to that in regards to the blood moon. And if you read it, you will see the connection between what we are talking about in terms of the journey that we are on and where we are at this point. Even with the blood moons that we have experienced in the past, I've not felt that way the way I do now, and I've not been drawn to the writing of in Joel in relationship to the moon turning to blood and the sun being darkened, and the idea of this being a great day of the Lord. It requires focus and concentrated reading, because you have to read it with the understanding of the metaphors that are in that particular chapter, and the people to whom the words are being spoken, or about whom the words are being spoken. And I think that we will get a clearer vision of where we are on this journey. And I too, as all of you, am ready for this journey to not come to an end, but come to a place of peace, a place where we can rebuild from the foundations that are being laid and that were laid from the beginning. I see where we are as a desolate land. We are in a desolate place, and in that desolate place, we are obligated, we are commissioned to raise up cities. We are commissioned to transform those cities into places of eating, places of pleasure. And the pleasure of which I speak is not the wanton pleasures that we see mimicked on TV and the other places. I'm talking about the pleasures of unicity, the pleasures of peace itself. I need very clearly that the desolate land is not just this nation. This nation is the most desolate land on earth because of the attitude and mentality of it. When you think about how little it cares about the people that it's supposed to govern, to cover, it causes you to pause and wonder what's next. Well, the reason that a king was a king or a Messiah is a Messiah is because it rules it right and has the best interest at hand. However, what we are experiencing is not messianic leadership. We're not experiencing kingship just because you call something a monarch in terms of king and queen doesn't make it that. Look at England and some of the other nations. When you are a king, you are messianic, and you don't have to be a man to be a king, to be messianic. We are under the governance of Caesar. We are under the governance of European attitudes and thoughts. And those thoughts were taken from the other systems of understandings of this universe, and they were manipulated to mean what they wanted them to mean for the purpose of control. The philosophies, the scientific understandings, the spirituality, all of these were misunderstood by those who stole them from the East. Quite frankly, I don't believe that they had the capacity to understand them because they chose not to. And the reason they chose not to is because they chose to belittle the people from whom they stole them. And if you choose to believe that the authors of the philosophies and the spirituality are less than you or less intelligent than you, then you don't have the capacity to understand the true meanings of what's being written or what's being said. We are at the place now where we can right that wrong, and we are in the process of doing that. It is incumbent upon us to live this every day of our lives. We don't need to keep notes. We don't need to. We simply have, and when we understand the nature of desire, understand the nature of melanin, understand Elohim, understand the essence of Elohim, understand what a human looks like. All we have to do with that is put it under the umbrella of desire, and all of it comes into being in our lives. Stop second guessing yourself. Stop beating yourself up because you missed something or made a mistake. Everything that happens in your life is for the purpose of strengthening you and teaching you. And as it strengthens you and teaches you, it strengthens others and teaches them to teach others. So that's the journey that we are on. That's who we are. When we look at all of the things that we have brought into this earth realm, this environment for the benefit of humanity that has been taken from us and used to make a profit. When we look at all of those things and we see that we did this for the benefit of humanity, then we must also see that we are traveling the journey of spirituality for the benefit of humanity. Benefiting humanity involves more than learning how to store blood. It involves more than creating a cotton gin or learning how to harness energy in order for electricity to give us light in an artificial way. It's more than that. It's more than bringing into existence a cell phone or a computer, of which all we did. It's more than that. The things that we brought into existence are no good unless we bring harmony to humanity, and we are all able not only to benefit from, but to share and to improve upon them, so that humanity can become that being, that neutrino, that being that exists in this body because of neutrinos, as opposed to electrons, protons, and neutrons. So that's where I see us being, and that's where I see our responsibility, what I see they are. Questions, comments? I'm done. Thank you.
Pastor, what was that book again? Did you say Joel?
What book? Joel, yeah, Joel, Joel, yes. It's chapter 2. Okay?
Okay. Thank you.
You're quite welcome. Anyone else?
I know Pastor Richard's gonna pick at me. I wanted to look at all of this from, or try to look at it from everything we talked about, and also see it and understand it from a different perspective to better, I guess, understand all that has been said today, and starting off even with the man, man being made of carbon. And in order to do this, it's going to take everyone on the phone, independently using their imagination as we talk about this physical reality and everything else around it. So I'm trying to figure out exactly where I want to start. I want everyone to imagine everyone on here has been a child at some point, and everyone has pretended to be something or made up some type of scenario, whether it was a doctor or whatever, going to get parents and things around, laying around the house to maybe a tire to put on or something, et cetera, to go into this particular role and to buy into that role and act that role out. Well, and then I want also, as we talk about Elohim and what is Elohim? Elohim, and I'm going somewhere with this. I'm I guess trying to build it up with all the pieces of the part. So Elohim is who and what we are. Is our soul, and what our soul is doing is our soul is in this physical existence, um, in a sense, acting out in a physical world. Um, definitely don't want to say maybe something like a play, for a lack of better words, that we're making and going about full time. I mean, excuse me, in real time, we making it up as we go. And in doing that, as we discuss different groups today, some groups start to fall into that role, not realizing that this is just a play and is not real. And what is also taking place during this role, as Ron asked earlier today about energy, it is our energy in this role, in this environment that we have created with our emotions and thoughts, that we create this physical reality. Going back now to carbon. Carbon is not the most plentiful element in this physical reality. However, carbon is in all living organizations. The other thing that carbon does as well is carbon by itself has more different compounds that it actually forms than any other elements alone combined. With that, that carbon is indicative in the physical standpoint of how we create this physical world. I know I'm going to end up missing some things because it is a lot. And if at any point there's any questions, please stop me and ask. All right, going back to, I was thinking about at the very beginning of Genesis when God said that you are to rule this world. It wasn't rule this world as in take control of this world and manipulate things or take advantage of things and use them. It was create this world as in create this world from that particular standpoint of all resources, whatever that you can think of and need is there for you to actually create. In the same way, it could be a system where Pastor Richard mentioned the dominant attitude of Caesar and those who actually manipulate. There's also could be a benign, I think I'm gonna use that word, basically coming from a place of creation that is thoughtful and not actually trying to hoard and take advantage of and things of that nature. And when we talk about forgiveness, like what Audrey mentioned, forgiveness is important because forgiveness, what is actually taking place is there's an acknowledgement of saying that this thing that I am, that is really bothering me, I don't believe that this thing is going to continue. And I have faith that it is actually going to change. It is also inherent in that forgiveness, an acknowledgement that this physical world, which in a sense is important, is not the end all, or this is not all in what my soul is. This is essentially a creation that we're creating in real time. The other thing that is taking place in this physical reality as we create with our thoughts and emotions, intent, etc., is that there's a delay. And in this delay, things happen slowly. So going back to the scenario where I was talking about us pretending to be whatever it is or whatever scenario as we play with our siblings, cousins, family members, whomever, we are accepting certain things for our imaginary little play scenario. And there are other things that we're saying no longer exist. In many cases, we are assuming, for example, in our minds that we are adults and we are playing that role. We're no longer little kids at that particular moment as we try to imagine what being an adult is like or what it is to be an adult. In the same exact way as we manifest things slower in this particular physical environment, we are accepting that things will transpire in front of us slowly. The next part I was about to say. We're accepting that things will happen slowly. So for example, in the dream state, that's not how things work in the dream state. In the dream state, our emotions and thoughts and intentions make things happen immediately. And there's not that same delay. So in a sense, this in this physical realm is a training ground to understand the energy and power of what and who we are. Give me one moment. And learning how to rule consciously. So going back again to those individuals who failed to do that, those are simply individuals who have failed to realize and understand that we are creating this as we go on. As mentioned very early, talking about experiencing the world, and as we experience the world, many times in the physical realm, just through our five senses. We also experience the world all the time through our internal senses as well. And it's through those internal senses, which is more so the direct connection, so what, to our soul, and or not our soul, but walking fully, I would say, in our soul, because I definitely don't want to make it seem like it's something separate by any means. And by not necessarily at the particular moments where we're operating from our internal senses are the times that we are going against the physical world in terms of just not being stuck in the internal world. So for example, is being in that illusion of playing doctor or whatever with your siblings, but then remember, okay, I'm also a little bit hungry. I smell food. My mother or father, whomever is cooking some food, I'm gonna get to eat in a little bit, but I'm still continuing to play as we go along. And then one last thing, when I mention emotion, I want to make it clear that as I speak of emotion, I'm talking about that which makes us feel lively internally. So yes, when you feel anger, when we feel rage, when we feel sorrow, when we feel bliss, when we feel joy, when we feel love, all of those things are things that we feel from an energy standpoint very greatly within. And in a sense, if we had to try to distill that to a word, we feel extremely alive, at those particular times. Those things, we have an emotionally charged, experiencing energy and different frequencies, which we are. I believe I'm done. It was a lot, and I really didn't know where to start, and I just saw all the stuff, but I've tried to marry them all together for the most part.
Thank you, sir. Any questions or comments?
So Sheldon,
I think
you're saying that we can feel all and be all those things at once.
Yes, it's just and when it comes to Ron's question about energy, the difference is we understand that none of this, in a sense, is permanent. What we're looking at, I guess, the current physical manifestation of what has been created. And so what we do in terms of energy, because all the energy is still there and available, we have the, I guess I was about to say gift, but of course it's a gift that belongs to everyone, to know that we don't have to accept this particular thing, or in a sense, this iteration of what is going on at this particular moment is, you can't really put a time frame on it, but let's say this is what we created from the past. So what we experience is that which we have created behind us in a sense. But at the same time, and this is going, I guess, very, very deep, the exact same way that time does not exist, when we, because we actively still do this as well, change something in the moment, it automatically changes that which was in the past as well. I think Pastor Richard mentioned that a few months ago when he was talking about, I forget how he said it, but he said something about we're going in the past through the future, something like that.
The past is in front of us, the future is behind us.
Yeah.
I can see that. But see, and the reason we are able to do that, Audrey, is because everything that's spiritual is now. The delineation between time and putting space there between events is a natural part of this environment for the purpose of giving us the necessary space to be able to bring an understanding of image and likeness to all of humanity. And we may not articulate it the same way, but all of it means the same thing. When we talk about image and likeness of Elohim. Oh.
Yeah. Yes, and as I'm looking out this window across the street, this building across the street, I am thinking that when everything is made of, for example, let's just say elements and energy, that is something that we essentially created with our thoughts. And in the same way, with the scenario that I mentioned about the kids playing, is the same way that we take anything around the house, and we pretend that that particular object is something else. I'm jumping on the bed or sitting in the bed, and the bed is actually my vehicle that I am driving somewhere. The bed is not physically going anywhere, but with me and my brother, we are imagining this bed on some journey, and in our heads, it is actually moving. Now, the only way that, all of this, of course, is going to sound completely absurd unless you understand, and that's only if you understand and see through the physical, I guess, limited mind, and you don't believe that you're anything beyond being human. So I say all that to say is that little boy, myself, who I just talked about with my brother, is basically two little kids. But as they're on some little adventure driving in this vehicle, they are being at that particular moment what you would call human. Something else different from what they are, but through their imagination and having an adventure and experience through that. In the same exact way, we as humans, we are as souls are doing that, having a human experience. But at the same time, we also have experiences that go beyond the physical all the time, but just whether or not we actually realize these particular things that take place with every single person, no matter how sinister or terrible we may think or destructive that they may be.
I see what you're saying, Sheldon, because even in that little scenario, those little boys are also creating. They're creating a kind of consciousness. So they're creating. So yeah, I see where you're going there.
Yeah. And one last thing I was thinking, Audrey, now that you mentioned that as well, when we're talking about feeling that pain and sorrow, even for like the people in Ukraine, even though they have definitely displayed their extreme racism at times and things of that particular nature, it is because in doing that particular thing, also the reason why many African people cannot help but to forgive people. It is because they automatically feel and know that connection is there, no matter if they're able to truly understand it from an intellectual standpoint or actually explain it. The only way that you cannot feel any hurt or any type of emotions from some particular thing is for you to completely deny its existence or not acknowledge also that that particular thing is of importance or matters to you. So that's why you automatically feel, we automatically feel that particular thing. And to not forgive would be to continue to go forward while keeping that thing distant. But the flip side of that is to continue to keep that thing distant is to stay in the I don't want to call it illusion, but to stay in that mindset with not direct communion or walking into the soul who you are. It's almost as if you're lying to yourself.
I can really see that in terms of how Caucasians don't deal with racism and the attitudes, especially in terms of systemic racism. They just want to go along and forget about it and not do anything, but they don't realize that that denial will take them further away from who they are.
Yes, very true. It's like we look at these things or have traditionally looked at these things as being punishments, but it's not actually punishment that is taking place in, I guess, creation of the universe. It is those things that we ourselves are automatically moving our selves aware close to, so to speak. And it's just, this is what has happened as a direct result of our actions. Like they're directly connected and they can't be separated. If I hate someone, then I have a wall up between myself and them, and I am separating myself from them. This is something that takes place with, for example, love all the time and being vulnerable. As I build up a strong wall around myself to protect myself, to separate myself from others and not have emotions and feelings, etc., then I am cutting myself off from, as I spoke about earlier, living lively within or experience the life lively internally that I am, because I have cut myself off from those experiences in a sense. And then I think about carbon from that sense, and I just thought about coal, like I'm turning into to coal in that scenario that I just explained. And in turning to coal is not that I am being ignored or not receiving love or experiencing love from others, is that I have cut myself from being able to experience the love from others and the love of the universe, etc. So yes.
That's right. And when you don't go through those hard times of dealing with yourself, you can't turn into a diamond.
Yes. And yeah, that hate, just if anyone just goes deeply into that hate just begets more hate and creates more and more separation. and that is the physical creation that that entity is creating at that time. I'm finished. Well, at the moment.
Anyone else? Any questions or comments in regards to that? Okay, I think I'm done. S, Sheldon, Audrey, the rest of you guys. Ron, questions, comments? George?
Well, could Angela spell that word one more time?
I have
Okay. You can just text
is
it. Oh, go ahead.
it has to do with nutrition. When it comes, it's just caused by nutrition. It's because of a deficiency in vitamin D, vitamin B12, and protein. Or it also comes from biting your nails or shoe rubbing your nails. Culprits. And I can see why they would say that it's prevalent with African Americans because of what we had to endure during the time of enslavement and afterwards. And now, especially with the food deserts in play, where you can only get heavily processed foods. And that is one of the culprits for the nutritional end of it, processed foods. But, the word is MELANONYCHIA. Got it?
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
If this is Ron, if I may make a request, part of Sheldon's observations and summation, he talked about this physical world being a proving ground or a practicing ground. I'd like for him to talk about that more at another time, of course, because we're out of time. But I like to hear more. I like that, and I think that's kind of fits into where we are looking at this eighth sense. But if you would please, if you have any more information on that, just whenever you have it available.
Will you be on Monday, Sheldon?
Yes, sir. I plan on it.
Okay, I guess it'll be available Monday, Ron.
I'd
Right,
appreciate
Sheldon?
it.
What did you say, Pastor Rich?
I guess it'll be available Monday then, right?
Yeah, I'll figure out a way to work it in as we continue to speak.
Okay, I'm just saying, Professor. Okay, I'm done. S, Ron, Sheldon, anyone else? Go ahead.
I think that's a good spot for today, and we can pick it up tomorrow.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank
All right,
you.
thanks, everybody. Bye.
All right. Thank you, everyone.